Some of the most delicious food I've had in the US has come from New Mexico. The spices and chilies there have a depth and richness that's completely unmatched anywhere else. A fun but difficult fact about New Mexican food is that it's really hard to get authentic hatch chilies outside of the state. Similar to champagne coming from a certain region of France, hatch chilies have to come from Hatch, New Mexico, which can make getting the authentic flavor that we want a little bit hard to achieve. That being said, it doesn't mean we can't make insanely delicious New Mexico-inspired red and green chili smothered breakfast burritos at home. There are a few good brands nowadays that have gone out of their way to make quality chilies available outside of the state, so we aren't totally out of luck. The burritos we're gonna be making are gonna be stuffed with fluffy eggs, crispy hash browns, warm green chilies, crispy bacon, and all smothered in your choice of red or green sauce. It's my hope that these burritos can at least honor and respect some of the most delicious food in the country. Let's make them.
A couple of key components I'm going to focus on for this recipe are the red and green chili sauces, the tortilla, and the hash brown. If we can get these things right, this just might be one of the most delicious things you can eat. For 3 good-sized burritos, I'm going to make a small batch of flour tortillas. This recipe is one that I've been using for a while now, and it yields soft, tender, and fluffy tortillas. In a bowl, mix 150 grams of all-purpose flour with 3 grams of salt and 1.5 grams of baking powder. To the dry mix, add 22 grams of lard and break that down using your hands. We're going to look for the texture of wet sand. Add 70 grams of warm water and knead the dough until smooth and supple, probably around 5 minutes. We need to let this sit in a bowl with a damp towel for about an hour. That's going to make the dough much easier to roll out. During this time, we've got a window to make some killer chili sauce. The red and green sauces are actually made from the same parent chili, but the route they take to get to the final product is very different. The green chilies are younger and are picked before they're allowed to ripen and turn red. The picking season for these hatch chilies is the end of summer, and they're roasted in large turning barrels. The dried red variety is allowed to ripen until bright red, then picked and hung on richness. These are the large strands of hung chilies you see decorating so much of the state. We'll start with the smooth and earthy red sauce first. This is 35 grams of dried chili that I'll cut the top off and remove the seeds from. It's totally okay if a few seeds make it in though, so don't worry too much. We're going to be simmering this with a little bit of water to reconstitute the chilies, so add these to your sauce pot with enough water to cover them. For some extra flavor, we'll add 3 cloves of peeled garlic, but that is pretty much it. Keeping this simple allows the earthy spice of the chilies to really shine. Simmer this until the chilies are nice and soft, probably around 15 to 20 minutes or so. Remove your chilies and garlic from the pot and add them to a blender along with a few spoonfuls of the cooking liquid. It's better to undershoot the liquid here rather than overshoot it, so play things a little bit conservatively. I'm going to add 3 grams of salt to this along with 2 grams of white sugar and a splash of rice vinegar. Blend this on high until completely smooth and then taste it for seasoning. If it's a little flat, it most likely needs a little bit more salt or maybe a little bit more vinegar. This should be rich, spicy, earthy, and slightly bitter. The chilies themselves can heavily vary when it comes to spice, so yours may be spicier or milder than mine. In my testing, I had one batch come out crazy hot and another one came out almost completely mild. Now the green chili sauce we're going to be making is much more vegetal and chunky, which I actually prefer. For the chilies themselves, look for a brand that has a New Mexico seal and a short list of ingredients. This brand is just roasted chilies, lime juice, salt, and garlic. To make the sauce, start by mincing 3 cloves of garlic and half a yellow onion. Measure out 130 grams of diced chilies, and we can move over to the stove. Begin sauteing the onions and garlic in a touch of oil over medium heat. Once softened, add a tablespoon of all-purpose flour and let that cook for a minute. Slowly add and stir in 200 grams of chicken stock. Once incorporated, add your green chilies and season with salt, pepper, garlic powder, cumin, and onion powder. We're going to bring this up to a simmer and cook on low heat for 30 minutes. This is going to just get better the longer it simmers, so cook it for as long as you can. While that simmers, we can separate our dough into 80-gram balls and roll them out as thin as possible. These may not be the largest tortillas, but they are sized just right to cook in the largest pan I own, and it makes for 3 normal-sized portions. Cook these in a medium-high heat pan for about a minute on each side and store in a warm place until we fill our burritos. For truly crispy hash browns, we need russet potatoes, and we need them to be as dry as possible. I like 2 medium potatoes washed and peeled, and I will grate them over the large holes of a box grater into a large bowl of cold water. Wash off those potatoes and then squeeze out as much water as you can with your hands. Place them in a clean towel and wring out the last of the remaining liquid. Season your potatoes with salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and smoked paprika. I'm going to cook the potatoes and the bacon at the same time, so get a pan for the bacon over medium-low heat and add in about 2 to 3 slices per burrito. Get a skillet preheating over medium for the potatoes and add enough olive oil mixed with vegetable oil to coat the bottom of this pan generously. If you use a nonstick here, it's going to require a lot less oil than I use, so keep that in mind. Once the oil is nice and hot, drop in your potatoes and even them out into a nice smooth layer. Tuck in the edges slightly as well, and we'll let that sit for around 3 to 5 minutes or so. Add olive oil to the sides of the pan as necessary, and check how the browning is coming along by lifting an edge with a spatula. Once nicely browned, confidently flip your hash brown and continue cooking on the second side for another 3 to 5 minutes. You will need to add more oil to the second side if you're using a stainless steel pan. Once the whole hash brown is set, place on a wire rack and season with salt. Place that in a warm oven to stay hot and continue cooking your bacon until crispy and delicious. Place that on the same rack as your hash brown. All of that can stay in a warm oven while we finish the last 2 things. We've got 2 key components left for our burritos. The first being sauteed green chilies and the second being scrambled eggs. Measure out 1 to 2 tablespoons of green chili per burrito and saute that with a little salt and oil. No need to cook these too long, we just want them warmed through. For the scrambled eggs, I like 6 eggs for every 3 burritos. Scramble those over medium-high heat to maintain beautiful fluffiness. I was going to be smug here and talk about how easy it is to keep the eggs from sticking to a stainless steel pan, and then I went and got it stuck. Hubris is funny like that. Okay, we're at the home stretch. To build each burrito, start with the eggs first and then top with a piece of our crunchy hash brown. Top that with 2 strips of bacon, a handful of shredded cheddar cheese, and as much green chili as you'd like. I'm going to keep this first one unsmothered and wrap it in tin foil so it can steam and get nice and warm. This would be more of your to-go style burrito. The next one though is going to get the special treatment. These sauces we made are insanely rich, flavorful, and spicy, so choose which one you like and use it to your heart's content. I like a combination of both red and green, often called Christmas in New Mexico. The green sauce is spicier and brighter, while the red sauce is smooth, earthy, and deep. Together, they make for a perfect pair on top of our delicious burritos. Anything smothered in sauce is my kind of food, so I absolutely adore these. Top this with a little cheese and throw it under the broiler to melt, and you're all set for a totally craveable burrito. We still laugh about this because it's a little bit ridiculous, but one of the biggest fights my wife and I ever got in was over a breakfast burrito in New Mexico. When we travel, I tend to plan out the food stuff, and she plans out the outdoorsy adventures. So I had picked out a famous burrito place in Santa Fe I really wanted to try. She had a hike in Colorado planned that we needed to get to, so I hopped in line, ordered my burrito, and hoped that it wouldn't take too long. It ended up being about a 45-minute wait, so our whole day was set back. Leaving later meant we sat in more traffic and ended up in Colorado about 2 hours after we'd planned, so that didn't leave much time for the beautiful hike my wife planned. The drive itself was incredibly awkward, and I felt too bad to even eat the burrito, so I didn't get to enjoy it. Luckily, she's incredibly gracious and forgiving, so it ended up being fine, but what an embarrassing reason to miss a hike. Lesson learned there, for sure. For more incredibly delicious breakfast items, check out my video about Texas breakfast tacos. Consider supporting me on Patreon like these amazing people do. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.